Okay, so what I want you to be, the place I want you to be is having the video up as well as your OneNote open to where the poem is. And then side note, I did post phase the third, the rally. I posted those questions in OneNote, so those are ready to go when you're ready to go, because that's for next week, the next 2 weeks really. So what am I looking for? I am looking for presenter. I'm opening up my document camera. The poem is called I Am Offering This Poem, just so that you can double check that you're in the right space. Here. I also want you guys up so I don't miss any questions if there are any. Okay. Girl. What's this? Sorry, I haven't used my document camera in a while. Okay, so let me know if this is good. Like you can see it and your poem like split screen. Is this good? So I want this to be big enough on your tiny screen so you can see what we're doing. Okay. So just as a reminder, what we were talking about last time is we were discussing structure of a poem. This is a skill. You should not only be able to identify the structure of a poem, like be able to like identify its parts, but you should also be able to talk about what kind of meaning, how does it contribute to the overall meaning? And so I'm going to write that down as a reminder here. This is a main question. How does, and you are welcome to write down what I write down for your notes. How does structure contribute to the overall meaning? Okay, that's one kind of question you might get that you're going to have to figure out how to answer by analyzing the structure. And then another possible kind of question you should be able to answer by analyzing the structure is, how does the author develop their ideas, or something along those lines? So how does structure contribute to the overall meaning, and how does the author develop their ideas? So, and that's I think that's a poorly worded version of what I'm thinking of, but I can't think of the exact sentence. But the point of looking at structure is to be able to try to answer these questions in a meaningful way. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to show you kind of the steps. And it's not just about, oh, these are the steps you should take. This is the thinking process you should go through. And the time it takes to do each part of the thinking will speed up the more you practice it. So if you remember from last time, because we were just looking at structure, we literally just were breaking this up section by section. And so the first section was here, ending with I love you. And it's got 6 lines. The next section ending with I love you is 5 lines, and then there was 9 lines, and then there was 6 lines. And so I numbered off each section just for my own organizational purposes. I put a little star here for the 9 lines because I'm curious as to why the 9 lines, why is it longer? Is it saying something more? Is it saying something more? Is it saying something different? Is it a contract? Like, we don't know. So I'm just kind of highlighting it. So the first thing we did here is we want to break up the poem into structural parts. And so for each structural part, we've got a stanza and then this I love you line, a stanza and a line, a stanza and a line. But otherwise, I'm not sure what to do with those I love yous if we don't include them with a stanza. So we've got predominantly 4 sections here to look at. So once we've kind of broken a poem up into its structure, the next thing we've got to do is figure out the idea. So each stanza is like a paragraph, and it should be centered around some kind of idea. So once you've broken it up into section by section, you want to go section by section and figure out, like, what's the idea here? So we're going to first read the whole poem, and then we'll go back and try to do the ideas. So this is called I Am Offering This Poem by Jimmy Santiago Baca. And it says, I am offering this poem to you since I have nothing else to give. Keep it like a warm coat when winter comes to cover you, or like a pair of thick socks the cold cannot bite through. I love you. I have nothing else to give to you, so it is a pot full of yellow corn to warm your belly in the winter. It is a scarf for your head to wear, over your hair to tie up around your face. I love you. Keep it. Treasure this as you would if you were lost, needing direction in the wilderness life becomes when mature. And in the corner of your drawer, tucked away like a cabin or a hogan and dense trees come knocking. And I will answer, give you directions, and let you warm yourself by the fire. Rest by this fire and make you feel safe. I love you. It is all I have to give, and anyone else, and all anyone needs to live, and to go on living inside when the world outside no longer cares if you live or die. Remember, I love you. So we're going to go back. Before we figure out any ideas, did anything stand out to you? Did anything like keep coming up? Any idea, any word, any concept is kind of repeated? So something I noticed over and over again is this idea of warm or warmth, which I'm just writing that down because I thought of it and I might be able to use that later. Okay, so like I said, we're going to break this up structurally into sections, and we're going to go section by section and figure out what's the kind of idea here for each section. So the first section is this number 1. It says, I am offering this poem to you since I have nothing else to give. Keep it like a warm coat when winter comes to cover you, or like a pair of thick socks the cold cannot bite through. I love you. So to me, what stands out right now, if I'm trying to figure out what is this really saying, he's talking about keep it like a warm coat. That's a simile. When winter comes to cover you, or like a pair of thick socks, another simile. And to me, these are about wearing. Like, So this is a guess, okay? I have not gone through this poem before, so this is me doing a cold read just like you guys. So I noticed that the poem is being compared to a warm coat and a pair of thick socks. And so both of those things you can put on, you can wear them, and both of those provide warmth. So right now, this poem is being compared to something you can wear to keep warm. I don't know if that will continue until I go to the next poem. Then he says, I have nothing else to give you. So it's a pot full of yellow corn to warm your belly in winter. It's a scarf for your head to wear over your hair to tie up around your face. So something else that was repeated, I have nothing else to give. So I have nothing else to give you. So the pot full of yellow corn, that's feed. Poem is to feed you. It's a scarf for your head to wear over your hair, to tie up around your face, to keep. And then the next section, you guys can still see it, I think. It says, keep it, treasure this as you would if you were lost in direction. In the wilderness, cups would mature. And in the corner of your drawer, like a cabin or a home, come knocking, and I will answer, give you directions, and let you warm yourself by this fire, rest by this fire, and make you feel safe. I love it. It's just so different. The idea of warm is still here, but in this stanza, it's more. So keep the treasure this. What we do is when we. So maybe I. This isn't just something to wear to you. It's something to guide you, right? If it's being kind of something to provide needing direction. And it says, direction in the wilderness life becomes when mature. So this is when you get older and life becomes a wilderness. This poem will guide you. This poem will direct you. So keep it, treasure it as you would if you were lost, and keep it in the corner of your drawer, tucked away like a cabin or hogan in dense trees. Come knocking and I will answer, give you directions, and let you warm yourself by this fire, rest by this fire, and make you feel safe. So this is definitely something to guide you, because we're back to the directions. But there's something here. It says, tucked away like a cabin in trees. So there's also this idea of keep it hidden. And then also, come knocking, and I will answer. And I'll say, come back anytime to the poem. And then again, it will warm you. Sorry, my lights just went up. Okay, and then last section. It's all I have to give and all anyone needs to live, and to go on living inside when the world outside no longer cares if you live or die. Remember, I love you. So again, he's saying that repeated, it's all I have to give. But then he says, it's all anyone needs to live. And so is he saying this poem is all anyone needs to live? Well, it can't be, because he's only given this poem to whoever he gave it to. He wants that person to keep it, right? So he's not talking about the poem anymore right here. And so we're really talking about love is all we need to live. So that just says love is all we need to live. That idea is here, right? And then this is interesting right here because he's got this contrast of inside and outside, side by side, you know, like this is a juxtaposition. And we'll talk about contrast next week. But it says, it's all I have to give, and it's all anyone needs to live, and to go on living inside when the world outside no longer cares if you live or die. And so we could definitely say that living inside means, oh, staying inside your house. But when he's describing outside, he's talking about people don't care if you live or die, when people don't care about you. So living inside has got to be emotionally inside, our internal emotions. So, and we're talking about love. So love, I'm just going to say is on the inside. And I'm going to add on regardless of what's going on the outside. And these are not perfectly worded statements right now. This is just me trying to figure out the ideas here. And I'm even comfortably using words from the text to help me understand what each section is really trying to say. So he says, it's all I have to give and all anyone needs to live, and to go on living inside when the world outside no longer cares if you live or die. Remember, I love you. So it's not just inside, it's living inside. And so we could say that life is really about love, or we could say being loved. I mean, let's be real. I don't know if this reader that this was written for loves him back. I don't know. Maybe this was like an anonymous poem, like given to somebody secretly in their locker. That happened to me in seventh or eighth grade. I had a secret admirer, and they kept putting notes in my locker. And so this would be a great poem to get, you know, anonymously, because it's a sign of love, but it doesn't include the person it's written to. So we don't really know how they feel. Okay. So we're going to take a step back and say the first step we did was we tried to identify sections of the structure of the poem, right? And so we identified a stanza and a line. That's just how this happened. So there's 4 sections: a stanza and a line, a stanza and a line, a stanza and a line, a stanza and a line. That was the first thing we did. We just wanted to piece it off so that we could break it down. I also just noticed that there were different number of lines. You can always try to notice that. It's usually pretty easy to notice when they're different, because when they're the same number of lines, they look the same. Anyway, so then once we sectioned off the poem, then we go back and we read the whole thing, and then we're trying to figure out section by section what's going on here. What's the ideas here? And so for our first section, I looked for things in common. I'm just trying to figure out, what is this really saying? And the first stanza to me is just talking about, you know, metaphorically, you can wear this poem to keep warm. You can't literally wear the poem unless it's a life-size poem that's printed on a blanket or a coat. But generally the first stanza is talking about wearing the poem to keep warm, and that's figurative. And then the second stanza, we read it and then noticed there were 2 different things. I don't know that warming your belly from eating and wearing a scarf over your hair are the same, like idea wise, which is why I wrote down two different things. So this poem can feed you, this poem can protect you, like in the cold. And then the third stanza is the 9-line stanza. And so I'm already expecting something different. And I'm right, something different does happen. Because it's more than just warming you at this point. There's more to it. And so it came up with, because of this concept of needing direction, and this poem will give you directions. This idea of like it being a map, the poem being a map, something to guide you. And then also talks about this cabin and dense trees. A cabin and dense trees it's going to be hard to see, right? It's going to be hard. It's going to be kind of lost in the midst of the forest. And so to me, I interpret this as meaning keep the poem hidden, and you can keep it to yourself. It's just for you. And then you can come back anytime. And when you come back, it will warm you again. Which is very sweet, honestly. And then the final stanza, typically if something's going to change, or change, I guess shift is the word. It usually happens in the last stanza. It shifted a little in this one because we added this guidance component, but it came back around and let it warm you. And then the last part, it's not really talking about the poem anymore. And so that's where this shift happens. The main shift happens because we went from talking about the poem as a metaphor continually for the first 3 stanzas. And then now what we're really talking about surfaces, and we're talking about love. And so I'm going to write this word shift. This is where the main shift happens, because now we're talking about something more abstract, more complicated. And so what we see here is all anyone needs to live is love. Love is all we need to live. Love is on the inside, regardless of what's going on the outside. And then life is really about love or being loved. And we could really just say being loved, because we don't know if that's the audience loves back. So it can't be about life is about loving other people. I don't think the author would say that. I think life is about loving people, or being loved by people in this sense. Okay, so I'll stop rambling. So right now we've broken it up into sections and try to figure out the main idea. The next thing we want to do is to figure out a deeper meaning, because when we want deeper meaning, we want overall meaning for the whole poem. So the deeper meaning, we're not there yet, because now it's like, okay, great, I identified some stuff, but now what? So the next stage, next phase of thinking through how structure contributes, or how an author is developing ideas, is we want to look at the relationship between ideas. So this is challenging. I'm not saying it's not challenging, but I'm gonna write relationship, and then I'm gonna write between 1 and 2. So between 1 and section 2, what's kind of that relationship between these two? And so if I go back, it's like, well, this is about the poem keeping you warm. And then this is like keeping you warm on the outside. Then this shifts to keeping you warm on the inside, and then also protecting. So I could say, starts with sorry, it's a small on the outside, and adds on I was just thinking, it's really addressing needs, like they need to be warm on the outside, they need to be fed, they need to be protected. And I'm looking for patterns here. So if it's asking about relationship between stanzas, what we're really looking for is some kind of pattern, some kind of something in common. And so wearing thick socks when it's cold outside, like that's a need. We need to do that. And then eating a pot full of yellow corn to warm your belly, we need to do that because we need to eat. And then wearing a scarf for your head, don't think of a scarf as just keeping warm. You wear it over your head and you tie up around your head and your hair. You're actually protecting yourself from wind, not just the cold, it's about the wind. So maybe the relationship between these two stanzas starts with kind of just, how about, let me erase this. If you're taking notes, I apologize. I told you, do a cold read. I want you to hear my thinking process. So you wanted to, starts with one need, then adds two more. Physical needs, right? Staying warm, eating, protecting your head. Those are all physical needs. So that's the beginning of the relationship between ideas. Okay, and to go on, I wouldn't say what's the relationship between this one and this one. I would say, okay, what's going on here? We figured out this relationship. Now, how does that relate to the third? So, sorry, I don't want to write that down. I don't know why I was writing that down. I'm an idiot. So I'm not going to write down how does it relate to the third. I want to say, how do these two relate to that? Okay, so if we look back at the ideas, the poem is something to guide you. You can come back to it anytime. Again, it will warm you. But how is this idea kind of different from the physical needs? And I would say this is talking about something not physical, right? Like needing direction in life, needing purpose in life. How could my mind is going short on words here. That's more than just physical, right? That's purpose. So I would say the expands the ideas to cover purpose, P-U-R-P-O-S, purpose. So the relationship goes to talking about one need and then adding on two more physical needs. And then this is not a physical need, but maybe a spiritual need. I'm putting a question there because I don't know if I want to use the word spiritual, but maybe needing, providing purpose in life could be a spiritual need. Yeah, I like that. And then how do those three, and I'm going to draw a line through here, how do those three stanzas then connect to the last one? So the last one is about love is all we need to live. Love is on the inside, regardless of what's going on the outside. Life is really about being loved. So how does that relate to a physical need, a spiritual need? How could we say this? I feel like I'm on the verge. So here it goes from how about, this is a guess. These are all interpretations. You could totally disagree and have some other way to say it and still be right. This shifts from the physical and spiritual needs to the real meaning of life. And I'm saying that because he says love is all we need to live, to really live. Which is love. Or being loved. And I'm saying or being loved because I'm not totally convinced this poem is just about love in general. Just because we don't know about the speaker. Okay. So we've done a lot of stuff here. It looks really busy. Obviously, we can, we're going to do some notes, hopefully next week, on how to use colors to annotate a little bit more effectively so we don't have to write everything down. We can use colors. But anyway, everything on here, well, 95% of what's written down here is just looking at structure. We did not really look at word choice, like choosing one word over another. We did not look at punctuation. We didn't look at, really, we haven't analyzed the figurative language in any kind of real depth. I mean, there's a lot of things that we could look at, but we haven't done it yet. All we've done is structure. And right now, looking at structure has filled up the page. And so part of my purpose here is to show you that structure matters and structure can reveal a lot. In fact, I think structure is kind of an easy way to really dig into the poem initially. Because if we wanted to go back now, I mean, I think going through it like this and looking at it in a structural sense and interpreting it based on its structure, I think I have a better understanding of the poem right now to go back and look at other things, like its repetition of the line, I have nothing else to give you. I'm offering this poem to you. It's like, well, why didn't you offer anything else? Is the poem the best way to do that? I mean, like, there's a lot of things we could do with it from here. So am I ready to write a paper? I totally could. I could write a paper on this stuff, just on structure. Could I answer the questions? How does structure contribute to the overall meaning? I think I could start to answer that question. Before I could answer that overall question, I have to figure out overall what's going on in the poem. So I'd have to do a little bit more analysis, but I think I could start. I feel like I have a place to start in discussing structure as a contributing factor to understanding the overall meaning. I think I could do that. And then another possible hard question is, how does the author develop their ideas? Well, part of analyzing structure is analyzing the relationship between ideas provided in structural components. So if we were going to answer that question, how does the author develop their ideas? It would be coming from the relationship between the structural components. So, does this make sense? Anybody? You're like, everybody went to sleep. Good, Emily. So this is as far as we're going to go with this right now. We're going to do some writing on it next week. But I just want to like really emphasize here, all we're really dealing with all these notes is structure. I mean, we did a couple of extra things like repeated concepts, that will be something else we'll practice, but really everything else, like in identifying a shift, those are two things like sort of not structural, but sort of it is. Anyway, the purpose here is I want you to see how much information you can get and how much how organized the information is once you look at things from a structural perspective. So that's where we're going to stop today on the video. Let me get back to the video. I gotta stop the video. All right, found it.